Firstly, what does the EU actually do for businesses in the North East?
Well, I mean, the EU in terms of, does actually provide substantial funding. I mean, over the next 7 years, it's going to be £660 million coming into the North East to support businesses and support training and social enterprises, etc. So there's a whole chunk, if you like, of money, of important money that comes in, and that levers in private money as well. So it's not just the public money coming from the coming directly from the EU, but it's also the private money that mixes with it. So that amount is at least double in terms of supporting enterprise within the North East.
Do you mean by that the free movement of people and trade?
Well, I mean, that's part of the EU. So you have free movement of goods, free movement of capital, and free movement of people. I mean, those are the three freedoms which, if you're going to have a kind of trade unity within the European Union, then those are essential. All three of them are essential.
Do you think that these freedoms are more relevant to people in this region? Does this region face more of a threat from the possibility of leaving Europe?
Well, both more of a threat and more of an opportunity. I mean, don't forget, this is the only region that has an export surplus with the rest of the EU. And for this region, it's a small region, we're only 2.5 million people. We produce about 3% of UK GDP. But the point is that our export performance is critical in terms of the region, in terms of enhancing growth in the region. If we lost the opportunity to actually develop that further, which is what would happen if we pulled out of the EU, then that would be extremely damaging to this region particularly.
UKIP, for example, have said that all of these trade benefits is something that we can keep without having to actually stay within the EU politically. Do you think that that's possible? I know UKIP have quoted Norway as an example of a country that can stay without the EU, but actually still get all of the benefits.
It's unrealistic, that's the point. And Norway is a very bad example because what Norway has to do is to obey the various rules and regulations anyway, because it governs trade. So if you want to trade with the rest of the EU, if you're outside, then really if you want to do it with any degree of success, you've actually got to be covered by those rules and regulations. The other issue is that, of course, increasingly you trade is global, and the EU has trade agreements with a number of countries and is negotiating others. So it has one with Canada, it's negotiating with Japan and the USA. Now, to do that outside would be extremely difficult. Moreover, if you left the EU, if the UK left the EU, then it would have to negotiate the ones which already exist. I mean, UKIP at the moment, you keep on saying that, well, Iceland's negotiated an agreement with China, but I'm not quite sure what the terms of that agreement are, but I would bet it probably benefits China rather more than Iceland. So that's a very good example to use.
Beyond whether that's even a possibility, do you think there are any other benefits of staying within the EU?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, everybody concentrates on the trade and business benefits, but there is also social Europe. And this started, I started working with the Commission in 1973, and at that point, economic integration proceeded to a large extent, although it's gone much further since with the single market. But what mattered then was to create a social Europe to match the economic Europe. And that means protection for workers' rights. It means equal pay. The estimate is that because of the EU, the gap between men and women has narrowed by 6%. If you take the Working Time Directive, then probably the benefit is around £76 per worker per year from simply the Working Time Directive. Okay. And then there are other protections in terms of collective dismissals, certain discriminations which are not covered by UK legislation, for instance on religion, etc.
Just to follow up on that a bit, one of the criticisms of the EU is that in this regard, for small businesses, all of these regulatory burdens just make running a business too difficult and too inefficient. Do you think these criticisms are valid?
No. having run a small business, there's so much nonsense talked about red tape. And even the Federation of Small Businesses puts it, they did a survey, national report was produced, well, it was third on the list of things, the idea of regulations. And there is a net benefit. And actually small companies are less affected by regulation than large companies. What large companies do is to tackle it in a very bureaucratic way. As a small company, you have that flexibility to do it very much more informally. So no, it's not a particular burden on small businesses.